Islam, everyone, and welcome to Moor's Heritage and History School. I trust everyone had a wonderful New Year's Eve, New Year's Day, post-New Year's Day celebration, even if it was nothing more than acknowledging the energies. It's, for me, a wonderful time of the year. This is Anna-Ida L., and I will be your host tonight along with RVBey. Islam, Raz, are you there? Well, Islam, Raz, are you there? All right. She'll be along shortly.
Yes,
today.
I am here. Can you hear me all right?
I can hear you now.
All right. I apologize. I was trying to reach it. I'm using this new device here to make sure that I don't waver. But, yeah. We're here for the Moorish Heritage and History class. We got a two-part class, so I'm going to be gathering this information I have here for that second part. All right?
Yes. All right. We are going to talk about two subjects tonight, both of which we have talked about on previous occasions. But we had a conversation last night, and, I felt that it was an appropriate thing to do to have to continue the discussion to continue the discussion today. And I'm also thinking that when we do meet up, physically, that we might even do some additional conversation regarding this particular subject matter. And really what it is protocol. This is all about protocol. Everything is protocol. There is a proper way to do everything. To be honest with you, with all of the information that is available, has been available, continues to become available, there's no reason why anyone should be flying by the seat of their pants, really. There is no reason. There is no excuse. It just ought not to be done. I mean, come on. This is main reason why Prophet Noble Drew Ali said that you have an illustrious history. Okay, so go and look into the history of the Moors, all right, and look how they handled situations. It was not flying by the seat of your pants, all right. So we need to beef that up a bit. There's a procedure, as I said, for everything. Now, it doesn't matter what the situation is, the procedure is going to be the same. One of the biggest challenges that we as a people, all people, really have and it is the biggest fraud going on right now is the right to travel. Ever anyone gets an offer, however it comes, the first thing you must do is analyze it. The second thing you must do is rebut it. Now, let me explain what rebutting a presentment is or an offer. But before I get into that, let me just make it clear what an offer is. I don't care what they call it, a ticket, a complaint, a suit. I don't care what it is presented as, it is an offer. It is an offer of some sort. Because on this American soil, everything must be done by consent. And the fraud is that they have mentally conditioned the people through lack of knowledge to consent without knowing to all manner of things. Now, that does not make it legal, and it is absolutely not lawful. But it happens. because that is a way of generating income. So if you get some sort of a ticket, complaint, or suit, it is an offer, it is a claim, all right? All of these things must be rebutted. What happened? If you look at what these people have put on that paper, you will find that using various codes, they have put into the public a claim. You must rebut the claim. What that means is you must tell your story, what happened, and it must be told in blunt language, assigning no titles, all right? Using no language as though you know these people. These are highwaymen. You have to know exactly what a highwayman is. And if you are not clear, go onto the RVBey Publications website. I'm not sure what page it is, but you can find the definition in the
driver's license fraud page.
Thank you. Driver's license fraud page. All right, go there, and you can also find the definition in the Black's Law 4th edition dictionary. You have to know what a highwayman is, because if you don't know what a highwayman is, you will behave as though, you will describe these people who are accosting you on the highway as though they are friends. They're not friends. They're not family. Now, in the Black's Law Dictionary on page 862, highwayman is defined as a bandit, one who robs travelers upon the highway. You're traveling. You're not driving. Driving is a commercial activity. I don't care if they want to call it driving. You are not driving. You are traveling. It is your right to travel unmolested. However, you are being molested by highwaymen. All right? Highwaymen, what does that mean? Did you know their name before they ran you off the road? See, people use language that describes a scenario where you are engaging in some sort of mutual agreement with a corporate employee, and somewhere undisclosed, undocumented agreement, you did something that was contrary to the agreement. Now, I know people have a big issue when it comes to contracts. It's like that comprehending contracts is like a big issue. People just seem to want to believe that even though you had zero knowledge that you were entering into an agreement, it's valid. No, it's not. I don't care how you cut that cake. That is not a valid claim. All right? So now once you get this offer, you must rebut it. It must be done in written form. They have put forth their story. You must put forth your story. That's how everything begins. And this must be done in 3 days. Now, for people who are new coming into this information, this is an excellent exercise for you because you may not be prepared or ready or studied. If you choose to go this route, to speak is why you send your documents. Your documents are to proceed you. So if you get an offer / fraud, alleged claim in the form of a ticket, complaint, suit, you must rebut that. You must tell your story. You must document what happened. You was forced off the road. A complete stranger accosted you and demanded information from your personal property from you in fear for your life because they had a gun. You gave it up. And then they gave you a demand for income, and then they sent you on your way after they robbed you. That is a highwayman. All right? That's a highwayman. And that's as blunt as you need to tell your story. Once you start talking about the de facto county of XYZ under the jurisdiction of XYZ Union State, public servant, is in violation of his fiduciary responsibility. Oh, that's bullcrap. Don't nobody know what you just said? That means nothing if you send that on to the other side of the world. It means nothing. And that's number one, it means nothing. Number two, you just made it appear as though they had an absolute right to do what they just did, and they don't. So it must be in blunt language. That rebuttal must be sent within my rule of thumb is 3 days. Send that within 3 days of receiving the offer. All right? Because you need to rebut that public claim as soon as possible. And you're not just sending it to them. You are sending it to the governor. You're sending it to the attorney general. You're sending it to the United States Secretary of State. You're sending it to the Justice Department. You're sending it to the United Nations. You're sending it to the International Criminal Court. You're sending it to the World Court. You're sending it to Interpol. You're sending it to the Federal Trade Commission because they're engaging in business and they're using you as a commodity to fraudulently generate income. You want to send it to the FCC and the SEC, Security Exchange Corporation, or Security Exchange Commissioner. You want to let everybody know. You want to tell everybody how you protect yourself. But the problem is people don't know how to follow protocol. Not only are you not rebutting it, you're walking in empty-handed. I am not, unless you are able to stand on the law, you don't want to walk in empty-handed. You don't want to walk in just on the strength of that offer and then try to beef up your position. All right? There's a strategy to this. Your writs are to precede you because what they're going to try to get you to do once you show up is testify. This is not a court of law. Therefore, no testimony is necessary. There is no need to swear in. This is not a court of record. Now, when you send in your rebuttal, it is with this that you are sending the argument of jurisdiction quo warranto. So there's 3 things that you will be sending back. That is your rebuttal, the argument of jurisdiction, and their offer, which is the ticket, the ticket, complaint, suit. You're sending those 3 things back to them. You have now put into the public arena your claim to substantiate what has happened. Let me tell you what you do not send in as a response to a claim. You do not send the name correction, and you do not send the proclamation. You do not send a copy of your national identification card. These 3 things are not necessary to send. That is not the protocol. The first paragraph is the first paragraph is where your status is. That's where it is. Nowhere else. That's where you put your free national appellation, ex-relation, and then you also put your nationality and your political jurisdiction. That is the first paragraph in your rebuttal. And then, after that, what transpired. And you want to let everybody know that your constitutional treaty-secured liberties have been violated. And nobody can tell that except you. And if you don't tell it, well, that's kind of sort of like a wrap. That's the only thing that you need to do. Now, how is that a good strategy, you might be asking? Here's why that's a good strategy. Because, like I said, if you are not comfortable rebutting whatever they may say, because see, what they're trying to do is get you to consent in some form or fashion. So when you make your special appearance, because that's what it is, and you're going to be stating that in your documentation, you will be making, because usually they will give you they're asking you for a request for income, right? Because they're counting on you not knowing law. Why? Because they ain't teach it to you, and they are the only game in town in terms of so-called school. They're the only game in town because they know that we as a people, we don't do independent study. So if they ain't tell us, we don't know. And they're betting on that remaining the case, all right? So you don't put a rebuttal to what they're saying in there, they're not going to. Now when you show up, they're going to try to get you, they're going to try to trip you up because they know we do things at the last minute. We don't study. We don't follow directions. We don't follow instructions. And they count on that. And I say these things not to put us down. I say it for us to recognize that we got to change our pattern. If that's what they're expecting, we're going to have to change our pattern. We're going to have to study like Prophet Noble Drew Ali told us to do. And now they know, oh, we better not mess with these Moors because they study for sure. They done came in and demonstrated. They listening to that damn Prophet Noble Drew Ali, and they sure as hell is studying. We can't mess with them no more. So now, until you can get the time, because a lot of people coming into this information brand new, you don't have time, all right, to study. So what you need, you don't have time to study so that you can, go toe-to-toe with these modern Europeans in their tribunal. So what you do is you do the studying and you document it in blunt language and you send that in. And so when they get you into their arena and they try to compromise you, the only thing you have to say is, my writ precede me, I stand mute. My writs precede me, I stand mute. That's all you need to say. But that only works if you send your writs ahead. You go in there flying by the seat of your pants, they're going to shake you and make change. That's what's going to happen because you didn't follow the protocol. And that's just the way it is. These people are here. Look, this past Sunday, we had the final part of the Treaty of Peace and Friendship. It was the discussion, all right? Now, for 4 months, we studied that Treaty of Peace and Friendship. It is absolutely clear the only reason that these modern Europeans are on this American soil is because they are here to, they're here for commerce. That's it. They are here for commerce. That's all they are here for. Now, when they first came here, they were engaging in the trade of fur, timber, fish, and things of that nature. But now they don't have that luxury. They don't have a commodity anymore. And so their commodity is the people, but it is only the people if the people remain uninformed. This right here, this Moorish divine and national movement of the world is not about somebody coming and doing anything for you. We have had that for a number of years, all right? The reason why we are in the situation we are in right now is because we have been mentally conditioned by these modern Europeans to know zero about ourselves and handling our family affairs. And we have been directed to the modern European to handle our affairs. Oh, you have a lawful issue? Go to the modern European family. Oh, you got a medical problem? Go to the modern European family. Oh, you got an educational situation? Go to the modern European. This Moorish divine and national movement of the world is about you being competent to handle your own affairs. And the only way that you're going to be able to do that is if you are studying. And what you're going to learn from studying is protocol. If you don't follow the protocol, then you're just going to continue to be revenue generators for a foreign people on American soil. That's it, and that's all. There's nothing else to say. So what I would suggest people do is, you want to go up on that RVBey publications and review those writs, but understand that those writs are not written in stone. They are there for a specific purpose, and that purpose is to give you an idea of how to structure the writ, how to say what you're trying to say. Those writs are not there for you to just take out the whoever it's going to or whoever it's coming from and just fill in your current information and send it out. That's not what that's for. I will tell you this, the Admin of Jurisdiction Quo Warranto, the only thing that you need to be filling in is the who it's going to and what court you're asking for the delegation of authority to. Other than that, you don't want to alter nothing. Who it's going to, who it's coming from, that's fine for the Admin of Jurisdiction Quo Warranto. However, the writ of discovery that is up there was written prior to the Admin of Jurisdiction Quo Warranto. But the writ of discovery is an example of how to send in a discovery. That particular writ of discovery is talking about, a request of the delegation of authority. However, since everybody thinks that they're involved in contracts because of the birth certificate, the writ of discovery is supposed to be asking for the contract. If anybody has ever watched the video that Sister Valerie did on law, what it is, I think another name that it's called is Black's Law Dictionary or something like that. But it is the video, and I think it's on YouTube, where she is wearing the white suit. If you study that, there's no reason why you should be tripping, really. One of the things that she lets you know is it don't matter what the situation is. Do we have a contract? She says it throughout her whole, do we have a contract? She's absolutely correct. Do we have a contract? Okay, so if there is, because you acting like there's a contract, so you need to be sending in a writ of discovery asking for the contract. You already got an admin of jurisdiction, quo warranto, asking for the delegation of authority and any oath. That's a strategy within itself, but I'm not going to expose that strategy. Study the admin of jurisdiction, quo warranto, and you will see the strategy. Now, the writ of discovery is you're asking now all of these police employees, they all have video recording apparatuses. They're before, during, and after the assault, writing stuff. Everybody's writing, passing around. The Department of Motor Vehicle is involved, the insurance company is involved, and the police employee is involved. The county is involved. Four corporations. Anybody send a writ of discovery asking for everything relative to this particular case number? And that's what the writ of discovery is for, not just to fill in the blank and send it off. It is a powerful instrument. That writ of discovery, if you go into your Black's Law Dictionary and you look up writ of discovery, familiarize yourself with exactly what a writ of discovery is. And I'm going to end this particular segment with this last thing. A writ of discovery does not require a seal. I have gotten some writ of discoveries in the mail, and can you put the seal on there for what? You're asking for something. We as a people got to know that we are the law. The people is the law. All right? You don't need nobody to validate your autograph. You don't need nobody to show some identification that proves you are who you say you are. Once you put your seal/mark on that document, that's what it is. Act like it. Act like you know, because if people were to go to the RVBey publications and look on the website for the documentation regarding the notary public, and you was to read it, even if you don't go there and read it, do the etymology, the research on notary public, you will find that a notary is simply somebody who knows how to read and write. That's it. It's a little bit more, but that's, in essence, that's all they are. So you don't know how to read and write? Because when you go and you get some notary to sign off on your document, they're signing off that I wrote this, and that's all these folks did was add their signature, and I added my signature to it, and we sent it off. Then you got some people using this notary protest thing, like, okay, so you're not competent to go to the post office and put a stamp on a document or put a certificate of what do you call it? What do you call it? Oh my gosh, it slipped me. The green and white form 5 mail, certified mail. Because see, it's all about strategy. So depending on your strategy, you're going to either send it first class, which is still guaranteed. You're going to send it certified mail, or you're going to send it registered mail. But it depends on your strategy. You can't have a strategy if you have not first written your cause of action. What happened? It's in the cause of action that you're going to come up with your strategy. But you can't come up with a strategy if you have not documented what just happened. All right? So that was the first thing that we wanted to talk about in, just as a little bit of information. And wait a minute now. I see Ms. Raheem is here. His mom is that you?
Islam fam, it is me. Can you hear me well?
Yes, I can hear you very well.
All right, that's peace, that's love. First and foremost, I just want to say thank y'all. I know the condition of broadcasting today is a little different. I was trying to get in from the beginning, but it was not. I don't think it was meant, because there's nothing to say after what you just said, except for the fact that everything you said was on point. The aspect of being prepared before you go to battle, you know what I mean? I know there's a lot of people who get caught off guard. You can't learn how to fight when you get hit. You should be prepared already. So that was the essence of what you're saying, was study beforehand. And then when these things pop up, you don't really have to really ask anybody what to do next, because the logic will kick in and you'll find your way as far as, preparing that proper protection for yourself and those spells in your wrist. But I just want to say, thanks to you, my mom, for doing what you do. I had a revelation, and I just wanted to share this with y'all, not to go too far out. But with the information, because, all due respect, I trust the best for the brother that called in, that you're adding on to. But information that's already been put out there, like you were saying, RVBey publications, MHHS, blog talks, all of them, is like an anaplerosis for those who don't know. You can get yourself prepared with that fundamental information there. But to go on to say, like, the blogs, the information y'all have been putting out for years, it just reminds me that there's been a prophecy fulfilled in correlation with what Drew Ali was saying, because for somebody to ask what to do next, it's a good question, but it also is a signifier that somebody may be unprepared, which we understand that everybody has been in that position before, which is why, like you said, we have to be proactive with these studies. we consistently give information that didn't just come from a cloud, that came from study, you know what I mean? And putting that in your mind. And I just want to give y'all acknowledgement, and I'm so continue to go in. But in question 39 of one of the ones, it says, what are angels used for? And that's to carry messages to the four corners of the earth. Y'all have been carrying the messages and getting them across all over the globe. That's not to brag on y'all. That's just the fact that correlated with this reference. How right and exact Noble Drew Ali was when he said that. Because I was studying in the unabridged dictionary and came across the definition of angel, and it literally says, it comes from Latin.
Miss, you just went silent. Miss? All right. I think there is some sort of a challenge going on with communication today. All right, he dropped out. He'll be right back in a minute.
Well,
so,
it's a black box day. It's a black box day today.
Yeah.
Which I think Mercury's moving in a certain area. I'd have to pull the thing, but you're looking
back in a second. Yeah, he'll be back in a second. But one of the things that I did want to make mention of, while we're waiting for Ms. to come back, is because I missed it when I was saying this.
Be aware he's off.
But y'all are the truth. All right. He'll be back in a moment. One of the things that I did want to make mention of it, because we say this all the time, and I believe, if I am not mistaken, when we did a class on how to respond to a demand for income, because that's what it is, a demand for income. All right, and one of the things, and I believe I put that in a folder somewhere where it might be, but one of the things that we did provide is like a template. Now, when I say I really am not liking to use templates, only because people that, that's it and nothing else, and that's not the case. That's not it and nothing else. But it's a guide. These writs on the website are guides. That's what they are. So what I wanted to just let everyone know is there is a paragraph that goes at the top of every writ, all right? And that sets your status. And what that says is, for example, this is what mine says, and you can use the same thing. I am Anaida El, Aboriginal Indigenous Moor of Maghrib al-Aqsa, with a political jurisdiction of Moorish American National. I am a natural divine being manifested in the human flesh into the Americas, in propria persona, sui haridis, and not a nom-de-guerre, straw man, or any other artificial corporate construct as written or scribed in all capital letters and written by the unclean hands of others. I am Aboriginal Indigenous to this land, and I do not waive or abandon any of my birthright. That's it. That's it. That's your status. You do not send in your name correction or proclamation. You have to send in a rebuttal. And that paragraph is at the top of your rebuttal. Now, the other thing that I want to say is that, everybody is looking for a sort of kind of cheat sheet. Okay, if they say this, you say that. If they say that, you say this. Let me tell you, the best strategy is to make sure that your writs precede you, because if you are not prepared to go toe-to-toe from a position of law with these people, you need to just make sure and have your writs precede you. That's number one. Number two, I remember when I went into this small claims court, and it don't matter if it's small claims or motor vehicle, what I witnessed is people talking first. The people who are being accosted, going and talking or trying to negotiate first. Anybody has said anything. All right? That's, this it is important. It is super. I can't even say how important it is for you to have your writs precede you. It is super important. That's what you have less to say. Really, you have nothing to say. Now, this is what we did back, I want to say, a couple of years ago. I'm not saying you shouldn't do it today, but what I am saying is you got to recognize if you're being accosted by employees of a corporation, then you must know that if any corporate employee attacks you, to sue them. Everybody, I mean, people make a joke out of going into department grocery stores, slipping and falling, and, don't get up, and make sure you tell them everything hurts. Why? Because you're going to sue them. Now, everybody knows what to do in that situation, but as soon as a similar situation happens, everybody, it's like they get amnesia. It's the same situation. Corporations are violating your liberty. Let me rephrase that. Employees of the corporation is violating your liberties because a corporation ain't never did nothing to nobody because a corporation is a fiction. It exists on paper only. And that is not NE speaking. That is universal law, and that is American law. All right? So people have got to recognize just what's going on. This is my prophet Noble Drew Elisa to study. He said you have an illustrious history. I can't say this enough. You have an illustrious history, and if you was to read the history, for you to know your history, you got to study the history of the world. Todd used to say this and he still does. He says this all the time. For you to know your history as a Moor, you got to study the history of the world because the Moors are not limited to the American soil only. We were everywhere. All right? Because really, when you think about it, all right?
So if you look at civilization, so that's
exactly.
Right.
Exactly. So now, here's the other thing, and we need to think. The prophet said, if I can just get you to thinking, you'd free yourself. You would. Because if you would just stop long enough to think, and I know everybody got stuff going on. We got stuff going on. We got stuff going on every day that if we weren't thinking, we wouldn't be able to figure out, okay, I got a new problem. How am I going to get out of this? Well, how am I going to get out of it? I'm certainly not going to get out of it because I went and called John, James, Sally, or Sue and asked them. I got out of it because I sat down and I said, okay, I just need to take a break, and then now I got to figure out how I'm going to get out of this situation. That's how you get yourself out of situations because they come to you every single day. Every day. Whether you declare your nationality or not, situations are coming to you every single day. All right? So, we need to be able to stop, calm down and think. How are we going to get out of them? And I know from my own personal experience, and I know Roz can say the same thing, once I get into, okay, I got to get out of this mode. I get into figuring out mode. Invariably, what I'm going to do, I'm going to open up the book. I'm going to I'm going to turn on my computer, and I'm going to start studying and writing and trying to come up with a plan. Sometimes, if it's like closer to home, meaning like it's within this area, I might start writing. But, everybody's handwriting is not legible. For me, that works. If it doesn't work for you, get on the computer, start typing. All right? And if if you don't have any situation, you need to check your junk mail that comes in every day and practice, writing for these junk mail that comes in the mail every single day that's got your private business out there in the public and you didn't give them permission to do so. I mean, there's no reason why anybody should be unprepared, really, none. We have so many issues that we can just practice on. You ain't even got to send the writ out. You can practice on it. We got stuff in our past that we can practice on. So there really is no reason for anybody to be unprepared. Really, the prophet said, I brought you everything to save a nation. Now save yourself. You got everything. We got everything. We got everything, and then we will just sit down and study. Don't panic. Don't panic. These things, they're going to come, they're going to go. You will handle it. If you just study, study. That's why the prophet said to do this. Study. And you trust me, if you lean on the prophet and his writings and his words and do what he tells you to do, you're not going to have a problem. That's it. You're not going to have a problem. That's right, but you will have a problem if you don't study. So I just wanted to touch on that. What depending on what we got planned for the 30th, I'm not sure what we have planned for the 30th, but the next time we do a class, we did a class on how to write a deposition / cause of action. So maybe we'll, plan to do a couple of more. And, one of the things that I think, because you can do a cause of action based on something that physically happened to you, or you can do a cause of action on something you observe. We did both. Remember when the sister, there was I think there was a YouTube clip of a sister who I want to say was in a van, got pulled over by a police employee, modern European, and she was in fear for her life, so she got in her conveyance with her baby and drove off.
Yeah.
She drove off, and what we did is we did a class on that where people would watch that and then write a cause of action as a witness. People can do this now. People can do this now. People can do this now as an exercise. Just so that you can get familiar with writing a deposition cause of action. But what I'm thinking I would like to do is we're going to do some more of that. Because that's how you're going to hone your skills. That's how you're going to look. We have to return to being masters of the law. The only way that is going to happen is if we practice.
Mm-hmm.
All right? So with that, what we want to talk about now is because, it is that time of the year where people are accosted by another corporation by the name of the Internal Revenue Service Corporation. And once again, the message is still the same. Number one, you got to know that American this is American soil. We are on American soil. This is not England. There is no such place as England. This is not Great Britain. This is American soil. That means that the supreme law of this land is the American Constitution, and that law is the only law that there is. There is nothing after that, all right? That law protects the liberties and the rights of the people. What that means is no corporation. And this is an excellent tie-in because these county, city, town, township, borough employees of these corporations is raping, accosting, and violating the people on a daily basis. And then once a year or throughout the year, you got the Internal Revenue Service Corporation that is raping, attacking, and violating the liberties of the people. Now, I can tell you that American Constitution, it is absolutely everybody's protection, but it can only protect you if you use it. All right? That's all there is to it. And it can only protect you if you declare your nationality, because it speaks to people of national origin. All right? So you better declare your nationality. I am not one of those people that subscribe to, oh, you're a 14th Amendment citizen. I'll tell you why I don't subscribe to that. Number one, if there's blood running through your veins, you are not a fiction. That's number one. Number two, the United Nations put out a declaration that said every church, school, mosque, state must tell the people who they are. Must. So there's no way that you can escape the very people who are supposed to tell you who you are. So it's not the people's fault that they don't know. And they should not be held accountable. However, it is their choice to find out and act accordingly. So I'm not one of those people that says, oh, yeah, 14th Amendment citizen. No, you need once we as Moors know, we're obligated to, if nothing, just tell them. But you don't walk up to people on the street and, oh, by the way, you're a Moor? No, that's not how you do that. If you are in an engaging conversation and the topic is one of nationality, then you say, well, until you declare your nationality, there's no law that protects you. That's it, boom, walk away. You don't have to get into no argument or discussion. If they really are looking, they will search it out and find it. That's it. You don't need to ram this down nobody's throat because it is what it is. So we get into this discussion of a continual raping and accosting of the people via the Internal Revenue Service Corporation. Now, we have to know that this very corporation it's already a matter of public record that they're not an agency of the federal government. And if you do the history, what you are going to find is that they're not even, this Internal Revenue Service Corporation is not the same entity that in 1861, 63, somewhere around there, where Abraham Lincoln initiated the income tax. That's not the same thing. It's not the same thing. What Abraham Lincoln did was he did a sort of executive order where he said we need to collect a certain percentage of income to fund the war. And that percentage of income is going to last a specific time frame. And at the end of that time frame, it will be repealed. And it was. Now, that was between 1861 and 1863. The Internal Revenue Service Corporation came into being somewhere around, I want to say 1913, 1933, somewhere around there. I have the timeline on my graph, but I haven't been able to find it. But that Internal Revenue Service Corporation came about, recently. And the amazing thing about that corporation is if people was to stop just voluntarily giving them income and do a little bit of research, what you're going to find is that what they did, and all of these corporations do it, what they did was they sent out a form. They sent out a form or a document, something, and they sent it out to a bunch of people, and they said, you need to fill this out, and if you fill this out, this XYZ is going to happen. Well, guess what? They did it as a test, and thousands of people returned the form with a donation, because that's what it's called. People don't even know that. This is called a donation. And so it worked so well, they've been sending this paper out every year since then. And so this is why now back if people was to do a little bit of research in 1913, between 1913 and 1933, when the Internal Revenue Service came into being, there was a lot less county, city, town, township, boroughs. But they got hit to this scam that the Internal Revenue Service Corporation was doing. Many of these corporations will do this to this very day. They will send people something in the mail, and the people will get afraid. Oh, my God, because, they've been mentally conditioned to know nothing about law. They know nothing about even asking questions. They just acquiesce. They give it up. And so they get some demand in the mail, and they say, oh, my God, I got to do this. I can't do this. I don't know what to, I'm just going to send them. It's easier just to send it to them. I can't tell you how many times I have heard people say, it's easier just to send it to them. They don't even know who them is. Back not too long ago, there was a huge scam going on. Where there was people who started their own collection agency. They started their own collection agency, and they were what they would do is they would check the public record, and they would send a letter saying that we're a debt collection agency. This is an attempt to collect the debt, and if you send us X amount of dollars, you owe like $500. You owe $500, but if you send us $250, we'll forgive you the balance. People was just sending $250 notes or whatever they asked for, just so that they wouldn't have to deal with it. And it came out, and the thing about it is, if you were to just look at the paper, the type of paper they were sending was so cheap. But because people have been mentally conditioned to think that them or they is like this huge law department. I can't tangle with them. They got too many people they got a huge law department, and so they would just send the money. Come to find out, it was somebody working in a living room, just sending out random papers to people who they had gotten information from the county, because the county is not supposed to be giving out people's private and confidential information, but because people voluntarily go and put it there all day long, they sell it. And so The Internal Revenue Service started out doing the very same thing. And over the years, they got better at fleecing the people. They got better at fleecing the people. And today, you know, people they're waking up a lot more. But I'll say this, if more people, not only do more people have to wake up, what they have to do is more people need to learn to sue these corporations just like they would sue if they go into a grocery store and Walmart and slip and fall.
Well, that's because they don't realize it. That's because they don't realize that these people are in fact not government. You know, they go in disguise. You know what I mean?
You know what? I think to a degree you are absolutely correct.
Right. I know.
Yeah, I think to a degree you're absolutely correct. But I think because people are so sick and tired, they're sick and tired of always being threatened, that they're pushing back now. And that's why the Internal Revenue Service has been under investigation for some years now because of that. Because people are just so sick and tired. Even with these these police employees, people are sick and tired. They're just sick and tired of being, it's like, and it's not that you like. What's happening is people, look, you know what's crazy? I want everybody who's listening now and who may listen in the future, go and look up stalker. Okay? Go and look up the word stalker from a lawful position. You will find that every single corporation stalks the people for the generation of revenue, income. And look at this. You got the Internal Revenue Service who alleges to be an agency of the federal government. The federal government has said, no, the Internal Revenue Service is not an agency of the federal government. They're not. They're not even a contractor, all right? They're not. So now what is happening? The Internal Revenue Service stalks people. Now, in order for them to get away with stalking the people, they have to be in bed with somebody. Now, if the feds said that they're not in bed with them, then who might they be in bed with? Now, I know from the way we've been, the way we've been going for a number of years, the logical person or the logical corporation that the Internal Revenue Service Corporation would be in bed with is the state, but it's not the state. Not the state. It's the county, city, town, township, boroughs. Because whenever the Internal Revenue Service Corporation decides that they're going to come and steal people's personal property because they didn't give them the donation, they always call the county, city, town, township, borough police employee. They don't. The state doesn't have a police power because the federal. Last year, we listened to Congress, so-called Congress, on record as saying the feds do not have police power. That's absolutely correct. Well, if the feds can't have police power, neither can the state. Now, let me explain to people why the feds or the states cannot have police power. Because the feds and the states are obligated, bound, to protect the people. And it is a matter of record and law that the police is only there to protect corporations. That is an absolute contradiction for the state and the feds to have a police to protect the corporation from who, for who. That would be treason. That's why when these police accost people on the highway, they put on, they coming in disguise for real, for real, for real. When they on the highway, they coming in disguise for real, because they will have these uniforms on that say that they're state police, we're state trooper. No, you're not, because they can't have police, they can't have soldiers, they can't have a militia on post during times of peace. That's a constitutional violation. But here's another reason why they damn sure enough don't work for the state. Let me explain to you why they don't work for the state. And anybody who has ever received a demand for income from any so-called state police, I hope you made a copy of that and analyzed it, because I did. We're on the highway. I'm a traveler. Let me think. I'm a guest. I'm a guest of a traveler. All right. The traveler gets pulled over. The traveler gets forced off the road by a highwayman. This highwayman comes to the side of the personal property of the traveler, and he doesn't identify himself. They never do. He doesn't identify himself. However, he has on this uniform that says state trooper. So now, we're making the assumption that this person is a state police, right? Until they give you the demand for income. Until they give you the demand for income. Because when you look at the demand for income is referencing a county corporation. Since when can a state employee make a demand on the people on behalf of a county corporation that is foreign on American soil? Now, here's where we're going to come full circle. Now, if you go into this tribunal, that county corporation is going to say, we're speaking on behalf of the state. Well, hello, if you're speaking on the behalf of the state, then why is it that I'm in a county courtroom, county meeting room, and this person that gave me the demand referenced the county instead of a state facility?
Right.
Did you follow that? You got a demand for income on the side of the road after being forced off the road by somebody who came disguised as a state employee. This state employee gives you a demand for income that sends you to the county.
Mm-hmm.
The county corporation. Then the county corporation says, well, we're speaking on behalf of the state. Well, if you're speaking on behalf of the state, why did the so-called state trooper or state employee, why didn't I get sent to a state court to begin with? Because all of this is a scam.
Big time.
It's a scam. Title 241 and 242, it says if two or more come in disguise, this person on the highways and byways, talking about they are state police, but they're going to give you a demand for income for the county? The county? That's treason. That's evidence of treason.
Mm-hmm. That's interesting.
Right? Yes. But you know what? Here's the problem we have. People don't analyze. They get all scared. We get scared. You know what? I'm going to tell you. And then we got other people out there talking about, them Moors, they haven't, what was the word they haven't worked this thing out yet. The Moors haven't worked this thing out yet. What thing? What thing have we not worked out yet? They talking like we establishing a corporation. This is fucking nationality.
Yeah, I know. That goes with the same long line as, well, we need the Moors to bring up some case law precedent. It's already the law. It's already precedent. You don't need to bring up any precedents with Moors. Not that they would. I mean, why are they asking for that? It's about enforcing the law.
That right there is ridiculous, because really what you're saying is, what is being said is, okay, here's a case law. I just want to read one, okay? Because they're trying to make it seem like, okay, we have to have case law specific to RVBey al-Ali. No, law is for everybody.
Mm-hmm.
Right? That's what it is. This is for, there's so many case laws out there regarding people's Internal Revenue Service, the Internal Revenue Service Corporation, and their allegation of an obligation to pay taxes. Now, I'll say this, because a lot of people, people will say, whether you go into a grocery store or you're dealing with the Internal Revenue Service Corporation, the people are never obligated to pay taxes. That's a corporate function. All right? Now, we have had Moors, and I have heard about Moors, and how come you ain't got to pay taxes? Everybody got to pay taxes. How come you ain't got to pay taxes? And the response from some Moors is, because I'm a Moor. No, that's not why you don't have. That's not why you are non-obligatory. You are non-obligatory for taxes because you are not a corporation. You're not a corporation. You are not a corporation. All right? Now, people might say, well, because they got the birth certificate, they made me a corporation. No, they didn't. And if that's what you think, you need to do some research on that instrument and bring some charges against somebody for human trafficking. Why you just going to accept, there's nothing I can do because I'm a corporation? No, you got documentation of human trafficking. Do something about it. Stop whining and do something about it. Look, we are at a time in history where it's no more room for whining. You got to do something or shut up. Now, when I say do something, I don't mean fly by the seat of your pants. I mean you got to study, put your pen to paper, or shut up. All right?
Yeah.
That's where we are. And, and I'm tired of these people saying, well, them Moors, they doing that stuff, and that's why they getting their behind kicked. You was getting your behind kicked before you declared your nationality.
Yeah, they didn't even know how much you know. Yeah, that is interesting. You did it. We're going into the taxes, but I wanted to, that short paragraph that you gave, what do you think is this one that's on the driver's? I mean, I always like it. It's on the ticket dismissal. Now, the ticket dismissal is another one that does not have to change, but it doesn't necessarily have to be that lengthy either. The ticket dismissal document doesn't have to be that lengthy, but, it's okay. Let me see. Okay. But I always liked, and I want to see if there's anything, I always like this little indentation on the top of the writ or whatever you're putting in, whatever you're writing in, because I agree with you 100%. It's like you definitely don't have to send in your name correction proclamation, copy of your card. Like, yeah, really behind what you're saying. Why don't you have to do this? Why don't you take taxes? Oh, because I'm a Moor. No. Now, what do we think of this one? I kind of like this one, except for petitioner needs to come out because we are not petitioners. I think I made that note that petition is to ask permission, right? A petitioner.
Mm-hmm.
Even to use that. That definition absolutely means you're asking permission. Now, people can loosely say, well, we're petitioning the court. But not only is it asking permission, the danger in that is that you're not petitioning a court. Therefore, you're petitioning, you would be petitioning private corporations who would take absolute advantage of you, knowing that, they know that petitioner means asking permission, just like they know a motion means discretionary to be denied or not. If you were in a lawful seated court, you might be able to get away with some of those things, but still, you definitely can't do that with these people because they're not court. So I would take petitioner off, and it says accused.
What I would put in there is allodial claim.
Claimant. Mm-hmm. It should
allodial.
Be allodial claimant. Okay, allodial claimant. I'm gonna do that. And it says allodial claimant, and then it says the accused, the witness, whatever they want to call you. Whatever they call you. Like Ms. had brought to my attention. This is something interesting, and Ms. brought this to the attention. And we're bringing this all out, as you said. Look at what they've given you. They're all deflective, rich, void, everything.
Yeah.
And they don't make sense, and they show the fraud. Or, okay, people say don't say fraud because you have to improve intent. Well, I mean, at the same time, their intention is to use words, because that's jurisdiction, to their favor. You said it earlier, because they know that we wouldn't know the difference. And they could tell us anything, and over the generations we go, well, that's what they're doing now, like that. And there's always the they, which is so vague because they needs to be identified. I'll never forget years ago, I remember Todd saying that to me. He said, people use they, but they never say they. Like we were bringing up, somebody says, well, they're going to change that. Who is they that's going to change that? You know what I mean? So, so they are also using words, and it's our time to bust that stuff up. It is our time to bust up the very words that they put in paper that is asinine, backwards, void, defective. That's what we have to do. That's why it has to be studied. But, okay, so let's say a allodial claimant accused. My point was, this is what he said. He says, similar to what you just said about how the state trooper will give you a ticket that says it's for take you to the county, but then the county, they have paperwork that comes out of that particular court, the so-called court that he sent it to in the county, right, that says the state versus you. So you can see all of that. Something's wrong with all that stuff, right? So in the same instance, they'll give you a ticket, a so-called ticket, which is really a suit and a claim. They're putting a claim on you with whatever they put there. And it'll say an offense. Remember, they have the list, well, this offense costs this much and this offense costs that much. And they'll call them offenses, right? They'll call them offenses that you've made, but then they'll bring you into the court and call you a defendant. You can't be the offender and defender. You see what I'm saying? Like, these are the things that are important, additionally important. So let's say a allodial claimant, accused, witness, and then you will put who you are, either ill or whatever. Natural person, appropriate persona, not pro se. See, not pro se is important. Why is not pro se important? Because pro se in itself means to proceed. That's the first trick. We've said this over the years too many times. I almost don't even want to say it again, because there's a whole page on the website that is dedicated to motions versus affidavits, and in that it also deals with pro se. Why you cannot use pro se? Because pro se simply means to proceed. Now, you have put sui juris, meaning that you're not proceeding under their jurisdiction. Because when you say, they'll say, well, we want you to, do you deny counsel? Well, you don't deny any of your rights. You don't waive. Do you waive counsel? You waive no right, but that isn't even a right. But in your mind, because there's no such thing. So what in your mind, you'll say, yes, I'm going pro. Yes, I do. And then they'll say, oh, so you're going pro se? And then you say, well, that's all wrong. Because when you say yes, that means you're proceeding. That's why you can't use per se. So it is not an inappropriate persona, not per se, and not cognate to nor related to any non-gear, all right, nor to any other fictional entity created under the color by unclean hands of others through misrecital, or artificial legal construct, nor am I a man of straw, as written, typed, photocopied, misrepresented, or deceptively scribed in all capital letters by the unclean hands of others. Now, whether you use that or not, you need to know what that means. Now, you can use it or you cannot use it. But what has happened is you just set the stage, as you said earlier, at the top of the affidavit. Now you got to go in with the law. You already just told them who you were and your position. They can't rebut that. That's all you have to do. But like you said, people say, oh, wow, like with the taxes. Oh, I don't pay taxes. Why? Because I'm a Moor? No. That's not why. I mean, it is and it isn't. You know what I mean? If you truly are a Moor proclaimed operating properly with, you know, with your information, yeah, you would not pay taxes. That's why it's so disgusting when you go into some of these temples that have these titles of Grand Sheik and they think you're supposed to pay taxes. Now, because they have no idea. But anyway, I said that because it reminded me of that additional. But when we get to the taxes thing, and the first thing, remember, we have a page called About Taxes page, right?
Yep.
And going to the Constitution, where I remember you gave me the explanation as they were drafting up the Constitution, congressional records, discussions, the whole bit. Ibid Gibbons versus Ogden 9-week-1-5 condition, RVP 562. And they cleared up in the congressional records before it was even, so that it was not a problem. And it said, and this is Article 1, Section 8 of the Constitution. That's where it talks about taxes, but this is to clear up exactly that they do not mean, never did they mean, natural people, right? Remember that? It says persons are not the subject. You know what I'm talking about?
Yes.
Persons are not. You got to know there's two types of persons. Because it says persons are not the subjects of commerce. Well, everybody reads it and when they speak persons, they think they're talking about a natural person. Well, there's two types of persons. This is what the study does. There's a natural and artificial. But they're telling you persons are not the subjects of commerce and not being imported goods. That means you are not an imported good. That's what it means. And not being imported goods, they do not fall within the meaning that was founded upon the Constitution of a power that is given to Congress to regulate commerce. You got to understand that sentence right there. Nor is it under the prohibitions of the states to impose a duty on imported goods. They say you as a natural person are not what is meant in the Constitution as far as tax, and you, as a state, they can impose a duty on you as if you are an imported good. That's what it's saying, right? Clear the whole matter up. Now, didn't you just say the taxes are for corporations?
Yeah.
Corporate persons. And you don't know the difference. Then they'll say, well, persons have to do this. Let's put it this way. And I know you went through all this because I remember when you came, it was a few years ago, almost now, and they were just doing the hearings for the IRS, and you had just gotten in, right? And you kind of, because it was at the new place where I was, I think, and we sat there and watched those hearings. And we're like, wow, the work is going on, right? Because they said in it, what did they say? They said what the reports they're getting from different departments, and from the, what do they call it, general people or something like that?
Yes,
yes. Yes, that's
yes.
fascinating.
They ripped up that commissioner of the Internal Revenue Services Corporation to the point where he resigned, and no one, it seems like ever since then, no one stays in that seat for too long.
Hell no. Like, devil's in that seat, man. That seat needs to be saved.
People get in there. It's like the only people, it's like the only people who's taking that seat these days is somebody who absolutely does not know.
Yeah, they give them that position, too, so they can be the fall guy, because they're coming to come to a grinding halt right now. Yeah, it's coming to a grinding halt. It really is.
Yeah,
but,
and some of the comments that they made. Here's one. Remember, in this hearing, they said that, and it was interesting for them to say this. They said, well, the people's confidence in the Internal Revenue Service, it has been so diminished that maybe we need to just abolish it. And I was like, look, what they just said was that it's no longer easy to scam the people as we have been doing for X amount of years. So we need to get rid of this process. But trust and believe, if they get rid of that, they're going to be replacing it with another way to scam the people, because more people need to wake up. But the great news is that, we got these new babies coming in with their eyes wide open. They bringing in the energy, and the energy they bringing in is, I come to kick down the door. And
so, that's interesting you say that, because for some of the people who you just answered. Okay.
I'm sorry. So these new energies is coming in. These new energies is coming in and they coming in kicking down doors. So these modern Europeans, they know that, okay, even if they get rid of the Internal Revenue Service Corporation and replace it with something else, that something else is only going to be here for a short period of time, because the baby coming in is kicking down doors. And I just want to say something real quickly to a lot of the mothers out there, because I know there's a lot of mothers out there, they're like, I don't know what's wrong with this child. They're different. I don't know how I'm going to keep them, this way or that way. Don't worry about it, because they can teach you a thing or two. Trust me. Let them come in and settle into that energy that they come in here with, and don't try to block them or pigeonhole them into any type of nook or cranny. Just let them be, and they will come, and trust me, they will protect their parents, because the parents are unconscious.
Yes,
because the parents are unconscious because they have been mentally conditioned away from the light, and these babies is coming in with the light shining bright. So let them protect you.
Yes, indeed. Absolutely, for the young and the yet unborn. But, it's interesting because you answered the question also that I was going to say, that some people, even after hearing what we're sharing now and will be sharing for the rest of this broadcast, they need to realize that these are thieves that sit in D.C., and that, like you said, they'll come up with something else. Now, even though we saw what happened, everybody knows, you said they don't have the tolerance for this anymore. Everybody knows they're lied to. But these people will still come at you and request things from you, but unless you know how to break down what they're requesting, and unless you have knowledge, you can't repel them. Because the main reason is that you're still thinking in your mental enslavement of the mind that they are, in fact, an authority because it's been like that for generations, but it is time to wake up and address them back in the proper manner. And everything you need to do that is already affirmed. There are no new laws. Look, even Amendment 16 that isn't even ratified, even if it were, even if you thought it was never meant for natural people. So therefore, they have no new taxing powers over the people because it was never meant for the natural people. When they say persons, they ain't talking about natural people. So that was one of the first lessons we say. Well, you know, there's an artificial person, there's a natural person. They done mixed truth with falsehood for so long and indoctrinated us all to believe that there's someone that they are not for so long. You know, that to untangle this web, but the information is out there now to do so. So I wanted to say that, yeah, we witnessed what happened with the IRS. We already know their incorporation. We put the incorporation papers on the site. They're not but a glorified accounting service for hire, you know. And then most of their little colluding counties and states hired them. And so they all decided to collude on the natural people because the natural people sleep, wake up. So they've done these things. But we are aware, and maybe many of us listening are aware. But those who are not, they're like, well, they're still asking me for this. Well, read what they just asked you for and rebut it or respond to it and have the knowledge that you have, you know, to repel it. And believe me, they back down. Don't they back down? I know that she was defensive about us. She definitely back down. Because even some of their employees that work for these, like, they're so into it that anybody who, you got to understand, any business that is running that got a license from the state to operate has already agreed by contract to tax you. Matter of fact, they started their business and you know, when you go to get a job, for instance, first thing before you can sit down and go, they got them W-2s and 4s for you to fill out. Because the company that you're working for will get fined if they don't present it to you. But here's the deal. They presented it. It doesn't mean you have to take the offer. It's an offer. So your company knows if they don't make the offer, they'll get fined. Why? Because that's what they agreed to in the contract with the state when they went to get the license. That's why. So, but you didn't, you know. So these are the things you have to know. Like, they'll still come after you. If they thought they could get away with coming after you, they will do so. Am I right or wrong?
Yep.
And here's the deal. Here's a letter from 1985. No, it doesn't change because it's from the Congress to someone who, this is on the site. I shouldn't even have to mention it. It's on the site. But I'm just going to mention with the powerful portion of it. For all those that are getting levies, most of the time it's because they've already agreed to something that's an adhesion contract. They've already agreed to something, so they're going to just, like, eat you up. Because in reality, we should have known before we got involved, but that's what this is for, so that the generations come up now will not get involved. It doesn't mean you can't get out of it. It's just that it's hard, and you got to have some information in order to get out of it. This is the age of information, right? So, and the reason why people have a hard time getting out of it and applying this information is because they think in their mind that these people are an authority. That's why. So, we can address a specific question relative to IRS Form 668W, Notice of Levy on Wages, Section 633 IRT entitled Levy and Distraint, and Section 6331 IRC entitled Authority of Secretary. Levy may be made upon the accrued salary or wages of any officer, employee, or elected official of the United States, District of Columbia, or any agency or instrumentality of the United States or the District of Columbia. First of all, they ain't talking about you as a natural person. Am I right? You're not an officer, employee, or elected official of the United States, District of Columbia, are you? They're not even talking about you. But somehow you agreed that you were, so they ate you up. Or any agency, instrumentality. Okay, sorry. Here's how the levy can happen. by serving notice of levy on the employee of such officer, that means still not you, employee or elected official. This stuff is for them, not you. It does not provide, and in case you didn't really get it, like maybe we don't know what we're talking about, the next line in this one-sentence paragraph from the Congress says, it does not provide authority to levy wages of private citizens in their private sector. Hello, what? Then it says, the omission of this section from the IRS Form 668W may be very misleading to some employers, as you have suggested. Well, did that clear it up? That's just one letter. There's a whole bunch. This one I haven't put up yet. I've been trying to get up, but it's such a CD copy that I have to retype it and make sure it's right. But let me just, that was in 1985. Now, here's another one that's a very good one, too. Oh, wait a minute. This one is up. There's another one that I'm trying to get up. I thought it wasn't up. Here's another one, another letter. And this is from a legislative correspondent, again, from the Senate. Then we have one from an IRS rep. That's the one I'm trying to get up. It says, regarding the precision provisions of the Internal Revenue Code that render an individual liable for income tax. Based on the research performed by the Congressional Research Service, there is no provision which specifically and unequivocally requires an individual to pay income tax.
Yeah.
And it goes in, and it says, no, the one I want to put up, it says the only way that you really have to pay is if you go into an agreement to do so. Now, that's the one I'm trying to get up. And it's the truth. But they coerce you with deception to thinking that you must go into agreement when you don't. All they want to do is get you to go into the agreement. So it's already stated that only if you go into the agreement that you agree to do so. And at the top of the about taxes pages, we got some quotes that prove that is so true. One of them says, wait a minute. Our tax system is based upon voluntary assessment and payment, not upon restraint. Our tax system is based on individual assessment and voluntary compliance. All right? That's from a revenue audit manual, right? Then it says the United States has a system of taxation by confession. Why does it say that? Because if no information or return is filed, the Internal Revenue Service cannot assess you. That's Gary McAvosky, Special IRS agent, testifying under oath in U.S. versus Lloyd. All right? And in Florida versus Lloyd, it's Supreme Court, Florida versus Lloyd, Supreme Court in Florida versus United States is where they said our tax system is based upon voluntary assessment. All right? I mean, it's everything you need to know and have is right there to fight this fight or to apply this information. Let's put it that way. You know, and then the United States has a system of taxation by confession. That's your confession. That's Hugo Black, Supreme Court Justice in USA, Treasurer. All of this, there's one more letter. I thought I had another letter up here, but we don't. I thought we had 3. Oh, we have the incorporation papers up here. But there's another letter that I want to put up, and I got to put my hands on it. That's the one that basically says that, you know, only if you agree, you get taxed. Now we're talking income tax here. So this is, some people think, and this applies here too, well, if I just send them in my proclamation papers, I know I'm a Moor and I don't pay taxes, right? I'm serious. That's not why. You have to know why and you have to apply it, right? because the breakdown really comes in is that an employee is one who is employed by the federal government. An employer is the federal government. An individual is a citizen of Guam or the U.S. Virgin Islands, and the business is defined as a government, a bank, or an insurance company. That's in their stuff. You understand? So they're not even talking about you.
Yeah.
I don't know how long, you know. But they do get their claws in you, and they will send out their policy enforcers. Well, I don't say they're sending them out, but they'll talk to, like when they say, what is an IRS police or whatever they call themselves? What the heck is that?
They're an employee of the Internal Revenue Service Corporation. That's it. There is no – well, actually, they're an employee. They're the security guard for that employee because, remember, case law for police states that police are there to protect corporations and prosecute, code breakers?
Yes.
Top here, all right? So so that means that it's not the duty of the police to protect you. Their job is to protect the corporation and arrest code breakers. That's SAP versus Tallahassee. So if there is an Internal Revenue Service police, they are a corporate security guard with a gun for the Internal Revenue Service. And basically what that means is that all of these corporations, they have their own militia. That's what that means because they all got guns.
Wow.
All of these corporations have their own militia because they all have guns. And many of their employees with guns come right out of the what do you call it, the military service. They come right from there. Almost a good majority of the police employees are ex-military people. Almost every single one of these corporations, their security, their police is ex-military people.
Wow.
So they have their own militia. Each one of these corporations have their own militia. That is a constitutional violation.
Now, there you go. So, enforcing the Constitution is what we need to do, should also have been doing, and have been duly advised to do, so that we are not molested by these other people, these other citizens, and that's what's happening. Now, there is a breakdown with income tax, sales tax. They're all taxes, but they're a little different in that respect. Now, the income tax, really, you agree that when you get that job, you fill out that form and you are agreeing, and it's an adhesion. That's why they don't even ask you every year to fill out another one. They just accept the W-2 that you gave them the first time for years and years and years, and they assume that position. And you are able to terminate that at your will whenever you choose, but they act like you're not, of course. But when you fill that out, you are actually agreeing to those positions of being having taxes taken out. So just keep that in mind. But now sales tax are in fact and in law for merchandise, goods, and imports, and are for corporations to pay as income. How about that?
Right.
It doesn't say buyer's tax. It's a sales tax, doesn't it?
It is a sales tax. And see, this is also in the Constitution, but, and this is why, Prophet Noble Drew Ali said enforce the Constitution. He ain't never said enforce a UCC code. He never said enforce the statute. He said enforce the Constitution, okay? And so when you read the Constitution lets you know that they can only tax imports, all right? Only imports. Now, all of these corporations, they import stuff. The taxes is for them to pay. But because they work in collusion, not with the state and not with the feds, but with the county, all right? Because if sometimes, and they work in conjunction with the counties. They know, just like the counties know, that the vast majority of people are uneducated. Really, they're uneducated. And so they know nothing about law. They know nothing about citizenship. Not citizenship. They know nothing about civics, which is law. All right? They don't know nothing about their own health. They know nothing. They're so uneducated. So because they work in collusion with the county, all right, these corporations, they know that if a lot of times if people come into their establishment and they say, well, I'm not paying taxes, they will say, because they know that most people are not educated. They will say, well, if you don't pay the taxes, then you need to just leave. Now, if you push it, they will say, I'm going to call the police.
Yeah.
That's what they will go. That's what they always say. And because they know that once you, especially if you're Asiatic, if you say, I'm going to call the police to the Asiatic people, they will immediately turn around and leave and not even push the issue. And they will probably come back at a future time and still engage in some sort of trade with this corporation. They know this. They know that the people are not going to take them to court. They're not going to ask. They're not going to ask them for that in writing. They're not going to ask them for their, the corporate policy on that. They a lot of times they get very belligerent, and the main reason that I find that our people get belligerent is because they don't even know why they're not obligated to pay taxes. They just know they're not obligated to pay taxes.
Well, now see, here's where it comes in about things must be in writing. Okay, if you are in fact dealing with something where, like for instance, sales tax, and the people that are working for whatever that company or that store is, they don't know jack. They just know what they're supposed to be doing. Mm-hmm. You would have to, in that respect, once you make your position known, you'd be educating them in the end. Not that you're there for that, but that's what will end up happening. So here's a case law, just for those who may put forth something in writing, because that's a substantiated evidence that you must have, because talking is not necessarily it. That might set something in motion, but you're going to have to put your position in writing. You're going to have to, all right? Because then it will have to be rebutted in written form rather than a back and forth phone conversation. None of that is viable, because they will swear you never had that conversation, and you don't want to go through it. You want to put it in writing. So here's the case law that says once you do have a situation, it says that the note in regards to a notice of illegality of a tax, and that's what is being notified at the time from you to whomever you're dealing with. If the company you're dealing with, whatever it's called, is acting as a collection officer or an agent for the state, because they always say, well, this is the state tax, this is the state law. They always say that, right? So that means that they're an agent for the state, because you're in a store or whatever it is, and they are not the state, all right? So they're obviously acting like an agent for the state. So this case law protects that. It says if they're acting as an officer or agent for the state and they have been given notice, that means written, people, written, of the illegality of the tax, the name of the state does not protect them. That's it. Atchison TNSFR Company versus O'Connor 223 U.S. 280 32 Sup Port 21656 LED 435 and CAS 1913C 1050. I know I didn't have to say all that, but I'm just saying this is this is when you are putting that emotion, and you must always, of course, speak if you are in an intelligent tone, and you must put it in written form, and that's the giving the notice of the tax illegality. Whatever company you're dealing with, the state that they're talking about, they're taxing you for acting as an agent, that state, that name of that state does not protect them from the illegality. All you got to do is give them the illegality, the notice of the illegality of the tax. The state's not going to protect them. And then the whole thing about we're going to call the police. What if, like you said, the first thing is, let me see, I'm going to find where, because it said that's a vexatious act and a threat. Oh, here it is. So if they're saying they're going to call the police and they're going to call the IRS, well, first of all, the IRS is, a corporation established at Delaware. All right, that's why we have the corporation papers on the site for you, so you can know that. But then if they talk about they're going to call police, that's going to give you an immediate sense of duress, right? It's coercion at its best, if you know what coercion is. It's a sensation of duress, and it's an act of coercion on their part to even say that. So what kind of report would they do based on charges that would involve calling the cops? It's not a crime that you're dealing with, nor is it any fraud that you're committing or intending to commit. So that would just be you would have a difficult time trying to overcome their vexatious acts based on bias of one's nationality and social status. That's a bias, So, and any, that's what it is. You got to know that's what it is.
You know what? I want to read some case files because this is why I can't say it enough. I just can't say it enough. The prophet Noah Drew Ali said, study, study, study. And look, there's a reason he said study, study, study. Here we are in this voluntary giving of the donation to the Internal Revenue Service Corporation, and many people are going to participate in it because they lack information. There is, one of the things that we need to be clear on, we say it all the time, ignorance of the law is no excuse. We say that to public servants, but guess what? That swings back at us. Ignorance of the law is no excuse.
It's no excuse. You're so right.
And so when Prophet Noah Drew Ali said study, 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 he said study, study, study as a way of protecting you because ignorance of the law is no excuse.
It's no excuse. Well, well, before you read those case laws, I just want to add one thing to the position in terms of, what they're doing is bias. Another thing that you can do, you write to them, you can say, look, if your company only does business with corporations/persons who are bound by corporate tax, you need to post that up in your store somewhere. That really scares them. In other words, if they know who is supposed to pay taxes, they have an obligation to know who does not. So if you're saying that I got to pay these taxes or whatever, getting a problem, you're going to call the police and the IRS and all that stuff and be biased against one's social status, nationality, and social status, then you need to post up a sign that says we only do business with people who are bound by corporate people. We only do business with corporations and persons who are bound by corporate tax. You know what I'm saying? And post it up then. Say that. They won't do that. They won't do that.
I want to read some of this case law because there's, when I was really looking into this statute, this whole Internal Revenue Service thing, I found so much case law. It was so ridiculous that I couldn't believe that more people was not suing the Internal Revenue Service Corporation. I understand why. I do, because, see, the majority of the people have been mentally conditioned to have these so-called, what they think is public servants, represent them, when really what you're doing is you're allowing employees of a corporation to go and push their agenda. But see, they're pushing their corporate agenda. That's their objective. But the people have been mentally conditioned to believe that when these employees of corporations go and speaking on behalf of protecting the people, no, they're not. That's what the people have been mentally conditioned to believe. The corporation, when I say corporations, I mean the county, city, town, township, boroughs, they go and speak on behalf of their agenda. Their agenda is to generate revenue. That's it. Nothing else. All right? So with that in mind, I want to read some of these case laws because they're fantastic. I'm going to read a couple. When one files a return voluntarily showing a tax due, he has presumably assessed himself and is content to become liable for the tax and to pay it. Now, the key in there, I wouldn't particularly use that in any of my claimant rebuttals, but what that is letting you know, this is a case law, and it's letting you know that when you do this, you're doing this voluntarily. There is no law that can compel the people to disclose their private and confidential information for that corporation to then turn around and impose on them a demand for income under the guise of taxes based on your exchange of your energy for compensation. That is absolute fraud. This is in 1979. Jerome Kahn, Commissioner of the Internal Revenue, says, quote, to put these figures in context, individuals voluntarily report nearly $1.1 trillion in income and paid $142 billion in voluntary income taxes. That is the 1979 Internal Revenue Service Annual Report. You see, the key word here is voluntarily. Because what appears to be a lawful command on the surface, many citizens, because of respect for the law, are cunningly coerced into waiving their rights due to ignorance. That's U.S.
my favorite one. Say that again. Say it again. Say it again.
Because what appears to be a lawful command on the surface, many citizens, because of respect for the law, are cunningly coerced into waiving their rights due to ignorance. That's U.S. versus Lincoln.
It says because of their respect for the law.
Yes.
For what appears to be a law. Excuse me. That's what it says.
Yes. Absolutely.
Because of what appears to be a law. Right. Because of their respect for what only appears to be a law. Wow. Is that saying amount
on the surface? Exactly. Now, this is former Internal Revenue Service Headquarters agent Paul Straufel had this to say about Internal Revenue Service audit. Quote, the real point of audit is to instill fear, not to extract revenue. The Internal Revenue Service aims at winning through intimidation and getting maximum voluntary compliance. Now, it's not voluntary, but what they said is they will use individuals as examples to instill fear in people who become aware of their actions so that people will voluntarily give the donations, the gifts to the Internal Revenue Service Corporation. This is what that just said. Now, this is a little bit lengthy, but
why did you say it was a gift? Why did you say it was a gift?
Okay, the reason it is a gift is because this is not law. It's a scam. But ignorance of the law is no excuse. So the presumption is you people, Moors, declared. Remember now, when you say you, the Prophet Noble Jewel said, if you do nothing, declare your nationality. And for a long time, I didn't quite get what that meant. He's saying, because see, people get declare and proclaim confused. All right? He said, he did not say, if you don't do nothing, proclaim your nationality. He said, if you do nothing, declare your nationality. That means be clear. Be absolutely 1,000% clear of what your nationality is, what it means.
Hold on now. Let us make this real clear so that we don't offend nobody. In the temples where he says in Acts, I don't have it in front of me. I think it's 4. I'm not sure. He says, as for us, we are proclaiming our nationality. Now, what's interesting, and that's what you're getting ready to show right now, is that people in the temple, they are actually declaring, because I have a little ceremony, in front of other people, and they witness it or whatever, they stand up and declare. But proclaiming is proclaiming is absolutely publishing, whereas declaring does not necessarily have to be to publish it. It needs to be clear yourself. So you got people out who aren't in temples or whatever, or groups who are declaring, they're proclaiming, which means they're putting in writing, but they have never declared because they're not clear.
That's right.
And then
that's why they don't know.
Exactly.
That's right. They don't know. And that's why the prophet said he made emphasis on declaring, be clear about your nationality, right? Because if you're not clear about your nationality, well, let me say it this way. If you are clear about your nationality, then you are clear about law. That means that the ignorance of law is no excuse, doesn't apply to you because you're clear about nationality, you're clear about law. They go together. All right? So you're not going to be doing things based on lack of information because you are now clear. So then we got this case law. It's a bit lengthy, but it's so powerful. It reads, we are of the opinion that there is a clear distinction in this particular between an individual and a corporation, and that the latter has no right to refuse, the latter being the corporation, to refuse to submit its books and papers for an examination. The individual may stand upon his constitutional rights as a citizen. He is entitled to carry on his private business in his own way. His power to contract is unlimited. He owes no duty to the state or to his neighbors to divulge his business or to open his doors to an investigation so far as it may tend to incriminate him. He owes no such duty to the state since he receives nothing therefrom beyond the protection of his life and property. His rights are such as existed by the law of the land long antecedent to the organization of the state, and can only be taken from him by due process of law and in accordance with the Constitution. That's an and right there, not or. They go together. And can only be taken from him by due process of law and in accordance with the Constitution. Among his rights are the refusal to incriminate himself and the immunity of himself and his property from arrest or seizure except under a warrant of law. Key there, it said warrant of law, not warrant of statute. He owes nothing to the public so long as he does not trespass upon their rights. An individual may lawfully refuse to answer incriminating questions unless protected by an immunity statute. That's Hale versus Henkel. That can also be used in your right to travel. Now, here's another one. These are just powerful. Whatever may constitute income, therefore must have the essential feature of gain to the recipient. This was true when the 16th Amendment became effective. It was true at the time of Eisner versus Revenue Code of 1938, and it is likewise true under Section 61A of the Internal Revenue Code of 1954. If there is no gain, there is no income. Congress has taxed income, not compensation for wages. That's Connor versus U.S. Income means only gain and profit, not wages. South Pacific versus Lowe and Stratton versus Halbert. It is to be noted that by the language of the Act, it is not salaries, wages, or compensation for personal service that are to be included in gross income. That's Lucas versus Earl. Income excludes wages, salaries, and tips. Graves versus People of New York, and are therefore not taxable. Judge Thomas W. Clary, Oakland versus U.S. There is a clear distinction between profit and wages or compensation for labor. Compensation for labor cannot be regarded as profit within the meaning of the law. That's Oliver versus Halstead. Reasonable compensation for labor or services rendered is not profit. Lauderdale Cemetery Association versus Matthews. And then we have the phraseology of Form 1040 is somewhat obscure. Perhaps it means that there shall be included actual receipt, A, for services rendered in the year for which the return is made, and B, for unpaid accounts or charges for services rendered in former years and paid in the year for which the return is made. But it matters little what it does mean. The statute and the statute alone determines what is income to be taxed. It taxes only income derived from many different specified sources. One does not derive income by rendering services and charging for them. Edwards versus Keith. Income means only gain and profit, not earnings. Staples versus U.S. Freedom in the making of contracts of personal employment by which labor and services are exchanged for money or other forms of property is an elementary part of the rights of personal liberty and private property, not to be struck down directly or arbitrarily. Prudential versus chief. Chief among contracts is that of personal employment by which labor and other services are exchanged for money or other forms of property. There's so many more. The term excise and privilege tax are synonymous. Congress may not, under the taxing power, assert a power not delegated to it by the Constitution. And then the Secretary of the Treasury cannot, by his regulation, alter or amend a revenue law. But there are no revenue laws. There are only codes. A debt is not paid by the giving of a note. How about that one? A note is only a promise to pay and not payment. A check payable in notes is an altered instrument and void. What does that mean? Ain't nobody getting no damn income. Everybody getting notes, IOUs. What the hell are you paying taxes on? A check is not money. Section 411 of Title 12 reads as follows. Federal Reserve notes to be issued at the discretion of the Federal Reserve Board for purposes of making advances to Federal Reserve banks. The said notes shall be obligations of the United States. Now, according to Title 31, Section 742, which is now Section 1342, all stocks, bonds, this is taken directly word for word right out of the code. All stocks, bonds, treasury notes, and other obligations of the United States, Federal Reserve notes, are debt obligations of the United States and shall be exempt from taxation by or under the state or municipal or local authority. This exemption extends to every form of taxation that would require that either the obligation or the interest thereon or both be considered directly or indirectly in the computation of the tax. In other words, said Federal Reserve notes are obligations of the United States under Section 411 of Title 12. They are exempt under 31, Section 742, which is now 1342. So what exactly is the people being taxed on? Really? This is such a huge issue. The reason I say it's a huge issue is because it's so blatantly obvious that the people are being scammed by the corporation identified as the Internal Revenue Service Corporation. The people are being raped, stolen from, and kidnapped and imprisoned just like by the Internal Revenue Service Corporation, just like they are being kidnapped, stolen from, and imprisoned by the county, city, town, township, boroughs. And look, don't they work together? It's so past time that people start suing because your constitutionally secured rights are being violated. You cannot bring an allodial claim. Moors, hear me? You cannot bring an allodial claim into a foreign tribunal. And the very tribunal that is accosting you and violating your national and international rights, secured rights. You've got to either bring that into a state venue, federal venue. Cannot bring that into a foreign tribunal. You're never going to get relief.
So,
never.
So you're saying with the taxes also that can't go, that those things can't go. Well, nothing can really go into their meeting rooms, really. But you're saying that with taxes, it absolutely has to go. It can't be brought into these smaller tribunals.
Nope. And here's the other thing. Just like we've asked people, and people need to do this research independently. Go into the American Constitution 1791 and find the delegation for traffic court. Go find the delegation for tax court. Go find the delegation for family court. These are three, these three corporations, they don't exist. They're not authorized, they're not sanctioned, because if you just look at them just from a cursory view, all three of them rape the people, violate the people's rights, steal from the people, kidnap the people, and they have a military on standby to force the people to comply. That is 1,000% unconstitutional. But all of these claims, they don't mean jack if you don't know the Constitution and if you ain't coming from a constitutional perspective, coming from statute or UCC. Their implication is that you have a mutual contract somewhere that you're too stupid to remember. That's what that says.
Wait a minute. You're saying that, let's get this. So, all right. So you're saying that when you're dealing, if they're dealing in commerce, so many more are approaching this thing from a commerce position. It's just great. That.
Yep.
And I know this, that there should be an existing contract already. Now, they think it's the birth certificate.
Which they're saying is a contract.
Yes.
And you know what's interesting? Right, it's not a contract because every contract must have full disclosure. Now, and people, if you want to get an idea, just a little idea, because it's got to be complete. But if you want to get an idea of what disclosure, what would be disclosed in a contract, go and pick up an application for a credit card. Now, that's a void contract anyway, because if you read the language of it, it's so fraudulent. However, there's terms and conditions that must be disclosed. If you are entering into a contract, first of all, people say, oh, yeah, the birth certificate is a contract. Okay, so what are the terms and conditions? Oh, the driving instrument is a contract. Okay, so what are the terms and conditions? Oh, the Social Security card is a contract. All right, so what is the terms and conditions?
Right. And it's not. When you really look at what this Social Security is, it's not a contract. It's right.
If you look at the Social Security number, the whole history of the Social Security Act was to make sure that federal employees were taken care of in their old age. It is an insurance, and it is voluntary. However, J. Edgar Hoover, criminal-minded that he was, envisioned this way of keeping track of everybody because that's the business he was in. He was in the business of manipulating people. That's why he had recordings of the Kennedy brothers. He had recordings of Nixon. He had recordings of everybody because this dude was sick. He was trying to do all kinds of manipulations. So his manipulating it wasn't restricted to the the Bureau of Investigation, because that's what they are, and that's what they still are. The Bureau of Investigation. He didn't want to just keep his thumb on everybody there. He had visions of extending it far and wide because the man had an issue. He had a mental issue around control. And for him, it made him feel really good to be able to have information on all people on American soil, foreigner that he was, all people on American soil, and be able to at any point manipulate them because that's the business he was in. It's his whole story. It's his whole life history. Go watch that little movie, J. Edgar Hoover. They give you a taste of what he was about. So he took the Social Security Act beyond what it was designed for. And because the majority of the people didn't make a stink, we have it today, 2016. However, if you go onto the Social Security website, it says that the Social Security card is not to be used as a form of identification. If you call them up and you ask them, well, I'm being asked to use it as an identification, they will tell you, just like they told me, well, you need to sue them. On the back of the card, it says, do not give this number to anybody. Everybody's giving it away. People call you up on the telephone. You don't even know them from Adam. They ask you, what's your Social Security number? People giving it up. Knock on your door. What's your Social Security number? Giving it up. On the back, but nobody ever looks at the back of the card. It says, do not give this number to anyone. And it's a federal violation for you to be denied anything because you choose not to give it up. But everybody is so not informed. that they don't even know simple things like that.
Mhm.
But this is all about thinking. The prophet said, if I can just get you to think, you would free yourself. And I like to ad lib and say you'd mess around, damn near accidentally free yourself.
Yeah, you do often. So, but yeah, you got to put your little swag on there.
Yeah,
but I mean, it's all been said. It's all been said, and we just have to get our heads out of the sand with our rear end sticking up. That's all, because the only way to get through this is to really have some knowledge and studying it, and the power of it is what we all get this information and apply it. They're done, but they're being done anyway. Because on our last month, it's these wheels and Cujo have brought that to light, and it just hit me that these wheels, like the prophet said, they're gonna stop turning, and that's what's happening now. And when they start up again, it's going to be in our hands, and that's where we are. Yeah, but he says that we mentioned last night that some people are still going to be wanting to be slaves, and there's some new people that are, take that and keep you in that state of mind since you want to continue to be the zombie and not declare your national status and honor your mothers and fathers. And as far as the law goes, what we're talking here, really, we were never taught the law. We were never taught the Constitution, which is the supreme law of this land. And that's really what has to be done. I mean, it just wasn't done.
That's absolutely correct. And you know what? And I can't say it enough. The prophet, it's all in it's all in the literature. It's everywhere. No one can do this for you. You have got to do it for yourself. So if you get that, that means you need to study and study and study, because nobody can speak for anyone else. No one can, because no one, look, you know what? Every time somebody calls into the show and they start telling the story, they're not even talking good, and I already know there's some missing information, and rightly so, because it's your private information and only you're supposed to know it. You shouldn't have to you shouldn't have to tell people your private and confidential information. It doesn't make you feel good. That's why you don't do it.
Mm-hmm.
You feel like you're being violated. You feel like, okay, you're being put in a position where somebody can now judge you. So you don't tell all of the pieces of information that is necessary to come up with a good strategy. And you should not have to tell anybody your private and confidential information. That's why you got to study. So you can handle your own family affairs.
It's called take your place, so you can take your place amongst the affairs of men. Come hear the truth about your nationality and your birthright. Link yourself back to the constitutional fold of government so that you can take your place amongst the affairs of man. That is it, and that is true. And with that, I think we have closed out. We're ready to close out. It's our time to shut down.
We are. We are definitely.
Next week.
That concludes this broadcast. Make sure check back with us Tuesday coming up for 29th for MHHS Eyes Wide Open, Principles of Nationality. That's at 9:30 p.m. And then we'll see you back. We'll be back next Wednesday. We'll be there. We'll be live at the National Theater next Wednesday at the class begins at 7:30. We'll be there about 6. Doors open at 6. So we'll be there physically at the National Theater next Wednesday, the 30th. Doors open at 6. Class begins at 7:30. Peace and love to everyone, and thank you so much for joining us.
All right, peace and love.
Wake up, everybody, no more sleeping in bed. No more backward thinking, time for thinking ahead.